So despite being totally fucking awesome, Princess 30 definitely has its fair share of flaws. The biggest of which, to me, being that it's very wordy. For a mode that claims to be high-octane 30-second action, each stage is preceded and concluded with more dialogue than really feels necessary. Just looking back at the previous video, there was almost 4 minutes of exposition before we were allowed to shoot at anything, and we even skipped the tutorial. Even Hero 30 wasn't that long-winded. It started off in about 2 minutes. Another minor thing about the dialogue that kinda bugs me is the text at the bottom of the screen that shows up mid-level. I'm not sure if all you guys noticed it at all, but with the game moving as fast as it does, it's borderline impossible to read it while still also playing the game. You can definitely try, but it's not going to end well by any stretch of the imagination. Though, even with how text-heavy this mode can get sometimes, the plot itself is still really straightforward, at most times just boiling down to, I think Father needs this MacGuffin. It didn't work? Okay, let's try another MacGuffin instead. It'd be a little unfair to compare the story to, say, Hero 30, but at least Evil Lord 30 had side quests spanning multiple stages. Along the way, we're going to get a couple new outfits. Honestly, neither of the other ones are that great, so I'm just going to stick with the default one. Much like Evil Lord 30, one of the major problems I have with this mode is difficulty. It's too easy. You can't die, and your money carries over between stages, making it really hard to not make more money than you've lost along the way. Enemies don't often knock off more than one soldier at a time, and medical fees are dirt cheap, meaning you'd really have to be going out of your way to get hurt enough for that to become an issue. Please excuse me for a moment while I eat my own words. I just get done talking about how easy this mode can be, and then this stage comes along, and believe me when I say it is an asshole and a half. Almost all the enemies are too strong to kill before you run into them, leaving you down on soldiers pretty quick if you're trying to fight them. Clearly though, I was just getting hit enough to demo what happens when you run out of soldiers. You can't lose Johnny or Max, or Hugh in this case, so getting hit when you're down to just them leaves you stunned. You can't shoot while stunned, and having just 2 soldiers leaves you moving around pretty slowly. So odds are you're going to get hit quite a few times before you manage to get away. Enough negativity. What do I like about Princess 30? Well, as I mentioned before, I like the simplicity of shoot-'em-ups, but to go a bit beyond that, it's definitely one of the more original shmups I've played. Normally the background is just that, a background, but here it's terrain, and it affects your movement, giving you another thing that you need to pay attention to, rather than just the enemies, which in turn gives Princess 30 that little bit of extra difficulty it really needs. If I may steal a term from Sonic games, I like the momentum-based gameplay. You've got to work to build up your speed, in this case, not running into any enemies, and staying on the main track as much as you can. Simple concept on paper, but actually pulling it off is a pretty challenging feat. Ignoring the gameplay, another thing I really like about Princess 30 is... Actually, you know what? No, that's too narrow. Another thing I really like about this whole game is the music. It's a bit crazy to think that there's all of these amazing songs that we barely even get to hear more than just the first 10 or 20 seconds of. I love music in games, and I'm a firm believer that, for the most part, kickin' rad game soundtracks have kind of fallen to the wayside in the idea of having fully orchestrated scores. Those just aren't as memorable to me. I still find myself humming tunes from the NES and Super Nintendo days, but I don't even really remember any of the tracks from something as recent as Skyrim. Most importantly, I love the characters in this game, and Princess 30 is no exception. I remember people thinking that Evil Lord was really over the top, but that's the point. Much like the music in this game, these characters are memorable. To me, movies and games and anything of the like have always been more about the characters rather than the story. The way I see it is you can have a completely engrossing story, but unless you have interesting characters, then I'm really not going to care all that much about what happens to any of them. On the other hand, you could have a story about someone trying to make a peanut butter sandwich, but if the characters are really memorable and interesting in some way, then I'm going to enjoy the journey.